Every day is different, even though sometimes it doesn't seem like it. Despite one's best efforts, every now and then one may have those periods where the days go by as just as a mere blur. Every day seems to be the same. Hopefully there aren't many of those periods. And then there's the other side of the coin. Those periods where every day is different and happily anticipated. And then there's the days like the one in my speech. I'll tell you about it. Is it 3:30 yet? Is it 3:30 yet? David Williams.
Timer, before you begin the timer, I'd like to say something very briefly to the folks online. I would love it if you folks online would unmute your mics. I would love to hear your natural reactions to my speech. Now, that doesn't mean I want you to yell out things like, David sucks, but if there's laughter or possibly even groans, but I would like to hear your reactions. Of course, groans, I guess, is nothing but a verbal version of, or a nonverbal version of David sucks, but I still would like to hear your reactions. There's a lot of heavy lifting in my speech this evening, so I brought along my assistant, Dolly. Say hello, Dolly. No, I'm talking to you. Say hello, Dolly.
Hello, Dolly. Hello, Dolly.
Okay, please don't do that again, whoever that was. Broccoli and liver. As a kid, the two things that my brother absolutely hated were broccoli and liver. I, on the other hand, liked liver. But of course my mother would make my brother eat the broccoli and liver anyway. Boy, it's good for you. Eat that. But as I said, I, on the other hand, like liver. As a kid, the two things that I actually hated were broccoli and school. I hated school. I was a horrible student. I did as little homework as possible, and I always studied for tests at the last minute if I studied at all. But as a student in school, I always got great grades, mostly A's. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. Who invented school? Who came up with this horrible idea? And why? Well, I really wanted to know, so I checked. It turns out that the earliest formal school was established in ancient Egypt in the year 2061. And I'm pretty sure that my third grade teacher, Mrs. Rosenthal, taught at that school. That's a joke, I'm joking. In fact, Mrs. Rosenthal was my favorite teacher at St. Abbot the Great Elementary School in Compton, California. I liked Mrs. Rosenthal. I liked all of my teachers, and my teachers liked me, but I hated school. But I always got great grades. Mostly A's. Now that I'm all grown up, I look back on my earlier self, my younger self, and I realized that hating school wasn't very smart. I've even had moments where I've regretted the fact that my indifference towards school just wasn't a very good idea. I find myself every now and then, because of the fact that I was a good student and I got mostly A's without really trying, I find myself every now and then wondering, what might I have done in school if I had actually tried? I've even had those moments where, once again, I've regretted my indifference towards school. My disdain towards school reached its zenith when I was 11. Now think about it. An 11-year-old can only take so much. How many of you have ever been 11? Okay. I thought so. I was in the 6th grade, and my brother was in the 4th grade. And what I didn't tell you earlier about my brother was that, much like myself, my younger brother, Ricky, wasn't very fond of school either. Probably it was contagious. As a matter of fact, I have a picture of my younger brother from an old family album. Rob? Okay. When I was a kid, I did wish that my younger brother was Spider-Man, but Ricky did work out eventually. Anyway, inevitably the day came when Ricky and I decided that it was time to tell our parents exactly how we felt about school. We knew that no grown-up was going to listen to us, but we knew that we had to do something. We weren't getting any younger. Suddenly, it came to us. We knew that we couldn't do anything rash, but suddenly it came to us, and it was an absolutely brilliant idea. Now, I don't recall which one of us thought of it first, but I do recall that we got the idea from an episode of the TV show Leave It to Beaver. Now, many of the details of what happened that day are still quite clear in my mind, surprisingly, but many of the details are not. At our school, all of the students wore uniforms. Ricky and I got up every morning, we put on a white shirt, we put on a green clip-on tie, and we put on a pair of thick, itchy corduroy pants. The day at school began at 8:30 and it ended at 3:30, but to all of you, that's just 7 hours. But to an 11-year-old kid who hated school, that's not 7 hours. That's forever. Now, the only thing that we needed was a plan. We needed a well thought out plan that would ensure that we didn't get caught. So, Ricky and I immediately put together a plan. Now, I brought a copy of the plan that we put together that day, and when I enlarged it so you'd be able to read it when I turn it around. And this is the plan that we came up with. Everyone, on our day of freedom on that morning, Ricky and I walked the 1-mile route to school. Pardon me. And as usual, we arrived at school at 8:15, and then it happened. Then it began. Then it hit us. We're at school. What are we doing at school? We were at school, and we realized we had just broken the most fundamental rule of playing hooky. You see, if you're going to play hooky from school, then you don't want anyone at school to see you there at school. But there we were, at school. We immediately had to hide. It was not a good start to our day of freedom. Fortunately, nearby on the playground, there was a small wooden booth that the school often used to sell cotton candy during school fairs. We climbed inside of the booth. Now, the sides of the booth were about 3 feet high, so we had to crouch down in order to keep from being seen, but at least we were in the clear. But once we got inside, we were both too scared to raise our heads to look around to see if we could get out of the booth. You see, the nuns at our school patrolled the schoolyard religiously. Well, they patrolled it constantly. And the nuns at our school were like a SWAT team dressed in habits. So we didn't raise our heads to look around. Instead, we did the next best thing. Nothing. We did absolutely nothing. We didn't raise our heads and risk being seen. We stayed in that booth the entire day, hiding. We sat on the ground in our thick, itchy corduroy pants for 7 hours. Or in other words, we stayed in that booth forever. Now, 7 hours sitting in that booth, think about it, Toastmasters. You can fly from New York to London in 7 hours. Anyway, on our day of freedom, we sat in the booth during lunch, and while we were in the booth eating our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that our mother had made for us, we could hear the other kids laughing and playing in the schoolyard nearby. They were running free. How ironic. It seemed that they didn't have any idea at all what day it was. It was our day of freedom. We didn't get caught that day, but it would be foolish to say that we got away with playing hooky that day. Even though we didn't go to class that day, some might say that Ricky and I still learned a lesson, but I wouldn't say that. In all honesty, I didn't feel I learned anything. The importance and the immense intrinsic value of school is undeniable. As a parent myself, I did everything possible in order to see to it that my children and my grandchildren received the best education available. But as a kid, I never stopped hating school. Long after our day of freedom, Ricky and I got up the courage and we told our parents what we had done. I think I was 31 at the time, maybe 32. I truly don't know why, and I've stopped trying to figure out the reason, but as a kid, I hated school. I was an absolutely horrible student. I did as little homework as possible. I always studied for tests at the last minute, if I studied at all. But I always got great grades. As a matter of fact, I always got A's. But when it came to playing hooky, I got an F. A well-deserved F. What was to be our day of freedom turned into something quite the opposite. We spent that day not running free, not even for one single minute. We spent that day hiding in a wooden booth, and as a result, my day of freedom was not the day that I expected to be. I can only imagine now what I must have been thinking then. For those 7 hours, I was probably thinking just one thought, probably the same thought, from 8:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon, as I sat in that booth on the ground in my thick, itchy corduroy pants for 7 hours. I must have been thinking, is it 3:30 yet? Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, I'll take the microphone.